The girl had just finished showering and was sitting on the bed when she suddenly heard someone knocking outside the door. She thought her boyfriend had come back, but when she opened the door, she saw a strange man standing there. The man looked the girl up and down, and the greedy look in his eyes made her skin crawl. Then he took off his clothes and grabbed Wing into his arms. She fought back with all her strength, but because of her mental condition, she could not speak up. Kit was cooling off downstairs, and he happened to see the shadow moving behind the curtain. He rushed upstairs, pulled out the tablecloth, knocked the man down, then climbed on top of him and beat him hard. Wing was immediately frightened and panicked. Kit beat the man badly, then flipped the table over and smashed it down. The two of them did not dare go home again, so they could only curl up in a corner for the whole night. The next day, they went to the police station to report the case, but the police called Kit away separately. After learning that Wing had a mental disability, Lao Gui immediately had filthy thoughts. Using the investigation as an excuse, he forcefully took off Wing's jacket. Wing nervously covered herself, trembling non-stop from fear, but Lao Gui had bad intentions, and he deliberately sent the younger officer away. He kept asking about the details, as if imagining those disturbing scenes in his head, and his questions became more and more disgusting. Wing was forced to remember many terrifying details, but luckily, through Kit's statement, they finally learned what the suspect looked like. The heavy-built man with a star tattoo on his right hand was actually Captain Du, the leader of these police officers. At that very moment, he was standing outside the interrogation room, watching everything that was happening inside. This poor couple had been separated, and they had no idea what they were about to face. Captain Du not only felt no guilt, he even accused the two of extortion and assaulting the police. Even so, Jeff still advised him to keep a low profile inside the station, but Captain Du was already consumed by rage, so he cursed out all of his men and ordered them to stand guard for him, saying they would deal with the case only after he had vented his anger. With a vicious look on his face, he walked toward the interrogation room, while Lao Gui waited greedily for his turn. Captain Du lit a cigarette and sat across from Wing without a trace of fear. Wing trembled in terror, finally understanding what true despair felt like. Kit happened to look at a photo, and the next second, he saw a group picture of Captain Du with the police officers. He realized something was wrong, but another officer had already appeared behind him. Ignoring the officer dragging him back, Kit used all his strength to rush toward Wing. When he kicked open the door of the interrogation room, he saw with his own eyes that Wing was being violated. His eyes widened with rage, and he let out an angry roar, but the police dragged him away, leaving him with nowhere to release his fury. The police pressed him against the glass and forced him to watch, then kicked him in the face and knocked him unconscious. Lao Gui pushed Wing against the table, leaving her with no chance to resist. Meanwhile, Kit was hung in midair, forced to watch Lao Gui violate Wing. These guys kept reliving what they had done, and Lao Gui even complained that he still wasn't satisfied. But after resting for only a few minutes, he grabbed a can of beer and prepared to continue. Kit had been beaten until his mouth was full of blood, and as soon as he woke up, he saw another filthy scene. Several officers took turns abusing Wing, and only stopped after several rounds. They casually started chatting about everyday matters, but then Jeff received a call from Ling. The information sent from the station confirmed Wing's identity, and everyone instantly fell silent. But after Captain Du took a drag from his cigarette, he scolded them again. He said Wing was mentally disabled and no one would believe her, and as long as they took care of Kit, all of them could walk away without worry. Jeff immediately arranged the plan, pinning charges of assaulting the police and theft on Kit. The police unlocked Kit's handcuffs, fired a shot into the air, then placed Kit's fingerprints on the gun, framing him for trying to steal a police firearm. Kit was convicted of assaulting the police and sentenced to 6 months in prison. He no longer fought back fiercely, looking as if he had accepted reality, but in private, He tore his fingers until the skin broke, ripping away the dead skin again and again, enduring the pain as he kept grinding them down until his fingerprints were completely gone. What waited for those scumbags was a rage they would never be able to withstand. After 6 months of torment, the day finally came when Kit was released from prison. The moment he walked out, he saw Wing waiting for him with a smile. When Kit saw Wing's swollen belly, he froze in place for several seconds. Wing smiled innocently, still unaware that she was pregnant, but what was even more cruel was that she did not even know which monster's child it was. Wing smiled as she walked toward him, took his hand, and went home with him. Life seemed to return to peace, and Kit did his best to make Wing happy, hiding all his hatred and never bringing up that painful memory. As the baby grew day by day, Kit finally found his chance for revenge. A pregnant woman finished shopping and returned home, but the moment she turned around, she froze in place. When Officer Ting rushed back home, he called out several times but got no response from his wife. Kit suddenly appeared from behind and stabbed a broken piece of porcelain into his neck. The police pulled a bag out of the sea, and even before opening it, the smell was unbearable. The moment they cut the bag open, rotten flesh and organs spilled everywhere, and inside, there were also the remains of an unborn baby whose bones had already formed, holding back their disgust. They sorted through the remains and unexpectedly found Officer Ting's ID. Several officers rushed into Officer Ting's home with guns drawn, and as soon as they stepped inside, they stepped into thick blood. The pregnant woman's stomach had been cut open, and she had already been dead for several days. The scene was so brutal that even the police could not help feeling a chill down their spines. Officer Ting's wife had been killed, while Officer Ting himself had disappeared. Lao Gui moved into a new home with Ling, and while boiling water, he noticed something was wrong. Seeing Ling staring fixedly at the corner, he quickly reached for the gun at his waist. The police were investigating Officer Ting's home when they suddenly received a call from Lao Gui.
Lão quỷ.喂.講嘢喂.喂.
When they arrived at Lao Gui's home, they saw another pregnant woman with her stomach cut open. The identical method immediately made everyone tense. They heard water running in the bathroom, so they kicked the door open. When the thick steam finally cleared, they discovered that Lao Gui had already been scalded to death by hot water. The sudden string of brutal cases threw everyone into panic. The police launched a wide investigation and set up checkpoints across major roads. Kit had already removed his fingerprints, leaving no evidence at the scenes. Aside from the officers who had been inside the station back then, no one could guess that he was the killer. Just as the patrol officer was about to let him go, Chef arrived with his man. Seeing that they were about to search the car again, Kit had no choice but to slip away quietly. Kit ran as fast as he could, and just as he was about to escape into the woods, he tripped at the critical moment and was tackled to the ground by Jeff. When he turned around, several officers instantly understood everything. They tortured Kit for answers, but Kit refused to say a single word. Jeff picked up a steel awl and walked toward him with overwhelming pressure. He held down Kit's head and slowly pushed the steel awl into Kit's ear. Even while enduring unbearable pain, Kit still refused to speak. Jeff lost his patience and poured a box of thumbtacks onto the table. Seeing that Kit was still holding on, Jeff threw a gun beside him, then used Kit's hatred to keep tempting him to take revenge by firing it. Kit struggled to crawl over, and just as he was about to grab the gun, the news reported on Kit's case and directly accused him of being the killer. Wing saw the news and quickly understood the key to everything. She burned the photo of the two of them, called the police, cut open her own stomach, then tremblingly threw the knife into the drain. When an identical case appeared again, the police had no choice but to reopen the investigation. Chef insisted that Kit was the killer, but the chief still suspended both of them from duty. Kit heard their conversation and quickly realized the most likely possibility. Facing the chief's fake comfort, Kit had no patience for his empty words, because all he wanted was to get home as soon as possible and see what had happened to Wing. Jeff still refused to give up and followed the trail all the way to the hospital where Wing was staying. When he arrived, he found that the security guard had already been knocked unconscious. Hearing a sound, he quickly chased down through the stairwell. Kit had stolen Wing's hospital bed and was driving an ambulance straight toward him. Seeing Jeff blocking the way, Kit stared at him expressionlessly. Kit drove the ambulance out of the hospital and was immediately shot at by another police officer. After several shots, the ambulance crashed straight into the roadside. The officer approached the door with his gun raised, only to find that Kit was not inside at all. The bullets ignited the gasoline, and in an instant, the crooked cop was swallowed by flames. Seeing Jeff chasing after him by car, Kit quickly ran deep into the woods. Jeff chased him from behind, swinging his baton hard across Kit's back. Kit was beaten until he was covered in blood, and finally collapsed when he could no longer hold on. While Jeff was catching his breath, Kit grabbed a broken manhole cover and smashed it into his face, ending Jeff on the spot. Captain Du found the ambulance, but he still could not find any trace of Kit. Knowing Kit was nearby, he fired a shot through Wing's body. Kit heard the gunshot, but he had almost no strength left to get up. When Kit still did not appear, Captain Du viciously fired another shot. Kit used every last bit of strength to struggle to his feet, then walked straight toward the gun. Captain Du shot him in the neck, making him fall to the ground again. Perhaps Kit was not meant to die yet, because Captain Du's gun suddenly kept jamming. Furious, he threw the gun away and spat hard on Kit's body. 5 years later, Captain Du had already been kicked out of the police force, but he had transformed himself into a pastor at a church. In an interview, he said the deaths of his teammates had filled him with guilt, and that in order to atone for his sins, he had personally killed the enemy. Kit saw him on television, and the seed of revenge was once again awakened in his heart. So he shaved his head and took out the handgun that had been hidden away for years. When Captain Du saw Kit, he was not afraid, and instead calmly poured him a cup of coffee.
我已經原諒咗你㗎啦，我有為你祈禱嘅。
Kit saw the children inside the church and instinctively blocked their view, then fired one shot and finally ended Captain Du. But just as he was about to leave, the children behind him suddenly attacked. One child gripped a pencil and stabbed it hard through Kit's neck. Kit struggled to get up, but in the next second, the children pinned him to the ground. Maybe Captain Du had turned them violent, or maybe they were simply taking revenge for him, but they pressed down on Kit until a gunshot rang out from the crowd.